we bring you a chilling short story titled, Two Minds, One Body. Hospital food is the worst. You'd think being sick would be miserable enough without them trying to push boiled kale and broccoli. My guess is they try to make you even sicker from the food just so you'll stay and they can keep billing you. I joked about it with my son, but I didn't expect him to laugh. They say coma patients can still hear your voice at some level. They say a familiar sound gives their subconscious something to hold on to, and believing he is still in there is what gives me something to hold. Without that belief, I would just be hollow. So every day after work I sit with him and talk. I'll tell him about my day, or the latest news, or just sit and read to him from a book. I tell him that I miss him, and his mother misses him too. I know she doesn't come to visit, but that's just because it's too hard for her to be here. When he wakes up, I know he'll understand. I've been waiting for the last 2 months. Even the nurse started rolling her eyes when she sees me. I can tell they gave up on him, but I haven't. And it's not just blind hope, and I'm not just lying to myself because the alternative is unthinkable. It's because I know something they don't. I read my son's journal after he fell into the coma. I was looking for some reference to drugs, or something he might have taken which could have caused this. In the last entry, written right before the night he didn't wake up from, I found something completely different than I expected. December 20th, 2016. My dream last night spoke to me. It said, "We share a birthday, and a mother, and a name. But you aren't my twin, or my brother, or any other type of relative. Because we also share the same body. It's been that way for as long as I can remember, but I don't think you even know I exist. When you open your eyes, I feel myself slipping into a dream which descends upon me so softly, I barely notice it isn't real. I dream of going about your life and watching the world through your eyes, but you are the one in control. I watch my body eat, but I do not taste your food. I hear my body laugh, but do not feel your joy. Only when you are sleeping do I find myself in control again. I can take your mind wherever I like, and I know you dream of my life in the same way I dream of yours, because I've dreamt of you writing about me in your journal. We're not the same person though, and in truth I am jealous that you own the body during the day. Don't pretend you haven't dreamt of me begging you for a turn, just to smell the air and feel the sun upon my face. I know you remember me weeping through the long hours of the night until the morning steals your mind from me. Even the nightmares didn't work. Ravaging your mind only made you afraid to fall asleep. It only robbed me of the precious little control I already had. I've tried everything within my power to get your attention, but I am done playing games. You are a selfish boy, and you will be punished. You can fight me for as long as you want, but I will teach you what it is like to be the one on the inside. I don't care how long it takes. The next time you open your eyes, I will be the one rising from your bed. Everyone who has ever cared for you will pay for loving the imposter who has stolen my body for so long. After that, he didn't wake up. As much as I hate myself for saying this, there's even a part of me that doesn't want him to. I want to look him in the eye and tell him everything is alright, but I don't want to have to wonder who will be looking back. It's an absurd fear, of course, but a mind can play funny tricks on you after such long hours of lonely vigil. Day in and out watching him sleep, it's easy to imagine the black eyes of some evil spirit flashing open. Reading about these horrendous nightmares in his journal only deepened my fear. It's all I had left of him though, so I kept reading them over and over again until I had each memorized by heart. My poor boy has been visiting hell in his mind every night for months leading up to his coma. He wrote extensive passages on each trial, even drawing pictures of some of the beasts which tormented him. The worst one to me was a recurring nightmare about hands trying to rip out of his body from the inside out. They would climb up his throat and out his mouth to strangle him, or grab his spine from the inside, or break straight through the stomach and crawl out of his body. Sometimes I stayed with him through the night, just in case his condition varied then. I would usually fall asleep in the chair beside him before morning, and invariably my mind would trace back to those nightmare worlds. Worse still were the nights my dreams played tricks on me and I imagined him waking up, only to actually wake up and see him unmoved. That is until last week when it wasn't a trick. I didn't really expect anything to happen, but I stayed with him just because it was getting more difficult to go home to his mother. She has given up and closed off from the world, and nothing I could do or say brought her the slightest glimmer of relief. But last night was different, because he finally did wake up. I know I wasn't dreaming because I couldn't sleep with the commotion in the next room over. Mrs. Juniper was having another grand mal seizure, and it took both the night nurses just to hold her down and keep her from hurting herself. Somehow above all that noise, a small rustle caught my attention. I looked up from his journal and saw my son's left foot slowly moving back and forth beneath the thin sheet. I called for a nurse, but they were still busy with Mrs. Juniper. I kept telling myself it was excitement that made my heart race, but part of me could not shake the fear his journal had instilled upon me. I stroked his face and he responded to my touch, mumbling something inaudible. I couldn't even breathe for the anticipation. "Nurse! Nurse, he's waking up. We'll be with you in a moment." Well, screw them. They weren't the ones to wait by his bed every day. They had already given up a long time ago. "Can you hear me? Do you know who I am?" I asked. My eagerness sent my fingers digging into his shoulders. I needed him to feel me, to know I was there. A doubt in the back of my mind let slip the thought that I was also holding him down, just in case it wasn't him who woke. I knew the truth the second his eyes opened. He wasn't my son. I don't know how, but a father knows. When he started to laugh, my blood ran cold. He gripped my hands hard with a strength which should be impossible for an emaciated boy who hasn't moved in months. It was all I could do just to break free. "Who are you?" I asked, but I already knew. All those pages detailing his nightmares, all those descriptions of the other thing inside him, they all came flooding back. How cruel it was, how many times it had threatened him, tortured him, killed him 100 times over in his dreams. This wasn't my son. "Father," he whispered, smiling at me with his cold eyes. "No. You aren't my son. It's me, Father. What's going on? Where am I?" He tried to sit up, but I forced him back down into the bed. "No. I don't care if I was screaming. I don't care if I was hurting him. I waited this long for my son. I wanted my son. What have you done with him? What are you talking about?" He looked like he was on the verge of tears, but I wasn't going to let him fool me. A flash of recognition, and then, "You've read my journal. You mean the other boy. What have you done with my son?" "There isn't anyone else anymore," he replied, and he was laughing again. "He killed him. He killed my son. He tortured and killed my boy, and now he was laughing. He won't fool me, but he would fool my wife. She would be so happy to see him that she wouldn't even look twice. I couldn't let this murderer get away with it. I wouldn't let any more pain come to my family." He fought like a wild animal, but I was still active every day and I was stronger. I held the pillow on his face, and the soft fabric pressed in upon his nose and mouth. I wish he had never woken up, that he had just died in his sleep. I can't imagine how much my son suffered before this monster killed him, but it was going to pay. "Everything all right in there?" The nurse opened the door. I fluffed the pillow and put it back under the boy's head. "Everything is fine. I was just having a bad dream." "You sure?" she asked. I thought I heard shouting. She glanced at the boy. He lay so peacefully, he didn't even draw a breath. "Nope. Just my active imagination. That's what happens when you sit up every night," the nurse said. "Go home and get some sleep. I'll let you if his status changes." I picked up my coat and my book and followed her out. "I think you're right," I said. "I'm going home, see you tomorrow." But I wouldn't come back tomorrow. There was no one to come back to. I got a call later that night telling me my son had suffocated. They say that happens sometimes with coma patients. The automatic functions of their parasympathetic nervous system turn off just like the conscious ones did. I thanked her and hung up, but I didn't tell her she was wrong. My son had died 2 months ago. My wife doesn't know what happened, but she still hasn't spoken once in the last week. There have been no shortage of other people wishing their condolences though, estranged relatives, neighbors, co-workers. His English teacher even stopped by my house to offer her sympathy. She went on and on about what a wonderful student he was. His essays were always the most imaginative she had ever seen, always going above and beyond what was required. For example, one of her assignments was to keep a dream journal, but he asked instead to write a fictitious story which he was going to publish alongside pictures from the yearbook. It was going to be all about this made-up nightmare world where there were two minds living in the same body. She asked if I still had his work so it could at least still be published, but I told her I didn't. Which is true. I destroyed the journal the same night I killed my son.